if let's test a little bit of what we've learned. If I told you that you were looking at simple squamous epithelium, you could draw it as flat cells. They're going to be touching each other. If I was trying to draw them three-dimensionally, right, they'd be attached to each other like that, with their little nucleuses going off into space. And why would I want to use stratified squamous? Because of diffusion. Whenever the body is particularly relying on diffusion to move things from one side to the other side of a barrier, and these epithelia are always barriers. If the body is using it for that reason, don't forget the basement membrane. If the body is using it for that reason, then it's going to want simple squamous because this is the thinnest possible barrier between two areas, right? Now, what if I had stratified squamous? If I had stratified squamous, the bottom ones might be kind of roundish, but as we go higher up, why, yes, I am an artist. Okay, they get really flat up at the top. And particularly with stratified squamous, the cells that are close to the top are usually already dead. And why do we want stratified squamous? We want stratified squamous because there are times when there is abrasion that is removing some of these cells. And you can remove quite a number of layers of cells with stratified squamous epithelium without there being any damage to the underlying organ, without you bleeding or something like that, okay? And then we could have pseudostratified columnar. Oh, yellow. Didn't know I was picking yellow. Let's try a different color. Let's try green, okay. All right, so here we've got these guys. Some of them don't all go all the way up to the top. Okay, and so it's confusing to us, and the nuclei can be at different levels. Good. Pseudostratified columnar lines the respiratory tract. Why pseudostratified is so good in the respiratory tract, I don't have an answer to that. All right, now let's move along and let's compare epithelial tissue to connective tissue, okay? So we know that epithelial tissues, the cells are completely, if I were to look down from the top, they completely touch each other. There's no room between them. If I were going to make a comparison, a typical connective tissue cell is maybe going to look kind of like this, and it's going to barely touch the fingertip of its friend over here, and then that one's going to touch another one. They don't touch each other, and so you would be very wise to ask, how can it be that they don't touch each other? What's in between? What's in between and what I'm coloring here as blue is stuff called matrix. The word matrix is a word that scientists use when they don't want to say goo or stuff or junk, okay? So they are very, very different. Epithelial tissue, many cells packed into sheets. One of the cells have got one free surface, one surface that's down on the basement membrane. Connective tissue, the cells are very often widely separated by this goo called matrix, right? Connective tissues are the most abundant tissue type, meaning if I took your entire body weight and I painstakingly put all of the epithelial cells over here, connective tissue cells over here, muscle cells, nerve cells, I probably would have a greater volume of weight with connective tissues. And usually these guys are widely separated by the matrix that the cells secrete. Not always. This example right here, that's adipose tissue. And adipose tissue actually has got stuff inside of the cells, fat, but not so much outside the cells. All righty. So we already know that connective tissues do many things. They got named because connective tissues, right? But they do a little bit more than that. For example, adipose tissue, it stores triglycerides. And I hope you remember that triglycerides are the best way of storing long-term energy. And adipose tissue also makes a great shock absorber. So there's a little bit of fat between the bones of your foot and the sole of your foot, so that when you're running barefooted, you're not bonking your bones against the ground, right? Great. Okay, before we talk about the different kinds of connective tissue, I need to tell you about the different fiber types, okay? The different fiber types. So, do that, okay? So, in general, the cells that live in connective tissues very often are named for the type of connective tissue that they live in. For example, in bone, the cells are called osteocytes. Those are the cells in bone. In cartilage, they are called chondrocytes. In fat, they are called adipocytes. Right? So very often the cells are named just, you know what, this is just Latin for bone cell, cartilage cell, fat cell. Kind of a cheat if you know Latin. But anyway, but sometimes they're just known as fibroblasts and fibrocytes, and you don't have to know the difference between those two from my course, AP 120. However, in tendons, the cells that make up the structure of the tendon are fibroblasts. And they remain there. How active they are at doing their job will vary depending upon the type of connective tissue that they're in. But the two most important proteins that you need to know for your exam are collagen and elastin. Okay, those are the two most important ones. And if we look here in this upper image, this is a little bit of tendon, okay? And here we have got collagen fibers. This stuff that kind of looks like a pink wax, those are collagen fibers. And collagen fibers are particularly good because they have really good tensile strength. What is tensile strength? Tensile strength means you can pull on it really hard and it will not break, right? Collagen is good for that. So everywhere that we need a connective tissue that will keep things from being torn apart, we are going to put at least a significant amount of collagen. So we have got a lot of collagen in all of our tendons. The Achilles tendon, for example. We've got a lot of collagen in the dermis. You know, the top layer of your skin is epidermis, and it's simple squamous epithelium. But the layer underneath it is dermis, and that dermis is mostly collagen. Interesting factoid, if you're wearing anything made out of leather, you are wearing the dermis of the animal it came from. So you are wearing the dense connective tissue from the cow or goat or, I don't know, alligator? I'm not sure, okay? So that's collagen. So now you know why it's good. By the way, you may be asking yourself, how can you say that that is collagen protein, Dr. Tydell, when you told me a little while ago that proteins were way too small to be seen through the microscope? Ha, right? Well, the only way that we can actually see that this is collagen and can see it so easily through the microscope is because it has tremendous quaternary structure. So the individual collagen subunits, no, way too small to be seen. But there are billions of them all put together to make these very large fibers, just like billions of keratins to make your hair. All right. Elastin. Elastin is the other one that you need to know. And elastin, as the name implies, is great because it is elastic. It stretches, and after it's been stretched, snaps back. So we will use elastin everywhere we need something to be stretchy. What are some of the things that bend and snap back? How about your ear? Your ear, you can bend it, it's not stiff, and when you let it go, it snaps back. All righty, let's talk about connective tissue types. Okay, let's start with areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is a very disorganized connective tissue that has lots of fibroblasts, lots of collagen fibers, some elastin, and it connects, for example, your skin to what's underneath. It also connects the individual muscles to each other. So I don't know if you guys cook, but if you cook, if you've ever said, oh, I'm going to stir fry some chicken, then you may have bought chicken and then pulled the skin off of the pieces of chicken that you bought so that you could cut them up and stir fry them. And when you pull the skin off of the chicken, you would have noticed it comes off pretty easily, but it's definitely attached. How's it attached? By areolar tissue. And by the way, humans have got very tight areolar tissue attaching our skin to our bodies. We don't think about it that way, but we do. How do you know? Have you ever played with like a really big dog? Like, let's think about like a Labrador or something like that. And you grab them by their scruff and you go, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Yes, you are. Oh, you are, you know. And so their skin moves all around, right? You can grab their scruff and their skin moves all the way around, right? That's because they have slightly different areolar tissue than humans do. And that lab probably thinks, wow, her skin is so tight. How is that working? Okay. Adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is where we store fat, and the cells that live there are called adipocytes because that means fat cells. By the way, in Latin, Greek, whatever, cytes just means cells. And then whatever is at the beginning tells you what kind of cell. So osteocytes, bone cells, hepatocytes, liver cells, right? And this is what it looks like when you look at it through the microscope. Now, adipose tissue kind of breaks the rules of connective tissues because the cells are actually attached to each other pretty strongly. They don't have extracellular matrix, but they do have a lot of fat inside the individual cells. Okay, we're going to pick up here at the beginning of the next video.